All right, we're going to continue along with lesson 10.3 on multiplying polynomials together. We're going to add a little bit to what you did yesterday, look at some different cases, and actually look at a little bit more complicated products when we don't just multiply a binomial by a binomial, but rather multiplying a binomial times a polynomial, or even a polynomial times a polynomial. But it's all the same process. There's really nothing too complex about it. All right, so first of all, let's look at this kind of a scenario. What happens if they asked you to square a binomial? If you remember, when we were started out multiplying a monomial by a binomial, actually, let me go back. When we were just adding and subtracting these polynomials, I would say to you, is there anything in front of the parentheses that I need to distribute? Is there a minus sign or a number? And then I would say, is there any exponents out here? Okay, well, this is that case. All right, so I have a grouping symbol. I have a binomial raised to the second power. So what that tells you is the base number here. The base number is actually this binomial. I got to write it twice and multiply them together. All right, so 5x minus 9 squared is 5x minus 9 times 5x minus 9. So this becomes a binomial times a binomial. And the way we execute that multiplication here is to FOIL. So basically, what my suggestion is, if you're given a binomial squared, you expand it out, write it as a binomial times a binomial, then just square it. So, 5x times 5x, 5x times negative 9, negative 9 times 5x, negative 9 times negative 9. Okay? So just do your, FOIL we talked yesterday, first, outside, inside, last, is the same thing as taking your first term and multiplying by each of these terms, and then your second term and multiplying it by each of these terms. Okay, simplify this. I get 25x squared minus 45x, and then I wrote minus 45x, and then plus 81. Now your two like terms here in the middle, negative 45 and negative 45, give us negative 90. So our simplified answer is 25x squared minus 90x plus 81. Just to let you know, there is a pattern to this that would bring us back to this as a simplified answer, if you will. When we go to factor here, we would actually factor this back to here. But there is a pattern to these. We're not going to get into it right now, but in the future, we'll talk about it. But this is how I'd go about the process. So take your given problem, expand it, FOIL, simplify. Okay. All right. Now, what happens if we have a binomial times a trinomial, or just a polynomial? So this could be, 3 terms, 4 terms, 5. Doesn't matter how many terms there are. Well, our process stays the same. Obviously we can't call it FOIL because FOIL only allows for 4 different multiplications: the F, the O, the I, the L. So this isn't FOIL, but it's the same concept. We're going to take our first term, x here in our binomial, and multiply it by each of these terms. So we're going to distribute x through this parenthesis, and then we're going to distribute the 3 through this parenthesis, and then we're going to simplify that answer. That's how you multiply these two together. So it looks like this. We're going to take x times x squared. We're going to take x times the opposite of x, and we're going to take x times negative 9. So that's distributing the x through. And now distribute the 3 through. 3 times x squared, 3 times negative x or opposite of x, and then 3 times negative 9. So once we've distributed the x through and the 3 through, now it comes time to go back here and simplify. Okay, so look, here's your first product, x times x squared. So this is x to the first times x to the second. When you multiply powers with like bases, you add exponents. So we're going to get x cubed. Okay, x cubed right here. And then this is a positive times a negative, so it's negative. X times x is x squared. Positive x times a negative 9, this is a negative 9x. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times negative x is negative 3x. 3 times negative 9, negative 27. So, here's our simplified polynomial. Once we've distributed it, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 terms. Now, to get our final answer, we need to combine like terms, write it in standard form. So there's only one x cubed term, and that's here, so that's going to come down. I've got 2x squared terms, negative 1x squared and 3x squared. That'll give me a 2x squared. Okay. I've got 2x terms, negative 9 and negative 3. That'll give us a negative 12. That should just be an x. Get rid of that x squared there. It's my fault. And then the last thing left is this negative 27. So here's our simplified answer. Don't ignore that square on that negative 12 there. Okay. So that's a binomial times a trinomial. But like I'm saying, it doesn't matter if it's a trinomial. There's no different way of doing it. It doesn't matter how many terms there are. Distribute each one through. Okay. Here's a trinomial times a trinomial. Okay. So same concept. We're going to take our first term of our first trinomial and we're going to multiply it by each of those in the second. Then we're going to take our middle term and multiply it by each of those. And then our last term and multiply it by each of those. So I'm distributing each one of these through this trinomial. Okay. So 3y squared times 4y squared. 3y squared times negative 4y. I kept that negative in front there. And then 3y squared times 14. That takes care of the first one. Okay. Now go to the middle one. Negative 5y times 4y squared. Negative 5y times negative 4y. And negative 5y times 14. It's getting long, huh? And then 9 times 4y squared. 9 times negative 4y. And 9 times 14. Okay, so should have 9 different products here. We're adding together 9 different products because, we distributed 3 through 3. That gave us 9. Okay. Now we have to simplify each of those products. So your first one here, 3y squared times 4y squared is going to be 12y to the fourth. Remember, 3 times the 4 is the 12. Y squared times y squared. Add exponents, y to the fourth. Second one is 3y squared times negative 4y. So the 3 and the negative 4 gave us this negative 12. Y squared times y to the first. When I add those, I get y to the third. 3 times 14 is 42, y squared. Okay, negative 5 times 4 is the negative 20, y to the first times y to the second. Add exponents, y to the third. Okay, negative 5 times negative 4, positive 20, y times y squared. Negative 5 times 14 is negative 70, y. 9 times 4 is 36, y squared. That's this one. 9 times negative 4y is negative 36y, and then 9 times 14 is 126. Okay, now I think it's very important you guys write this stuff out. I'm not there to watch you. You're not turning in work, but the only way you're really truly going to understand it is to write it out and do it. Okay, so we got one more step. We got to combine like terms, write it in standard form. There's only one y to the fourth term, and that's the first one. So she's going to go first. Okay. Now I go to my next degree. So 3. I have 2 terms to the y to the thirds. So I'm going to combine those two. And that's going to give me negative 32y cubed. I started putting these little slashes through here because there's so many of these. I want to make sure I get them all accounted for. So all done with all my y cubes and my y to the fourth. So the next one now is y squares. I got 42y squared, 20y squared, 36y squared. That'll give me a total of 98y squareds. Cancel those guys out. Now I'm down to my y term, negative 70 and negative 36 is negative 106y. So I'm done with those. And then the only thing left is my constant, 126. So that's standard form, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. And we're simplified. So it's not a new idea. Distributive property is not a new idea to you. This is a new way of doing it. And you got to be detailed and be careful with your signs and be careful with your powers and so forth. All right, so tonight's homework is a few of the ones from last night in addition to the newer ones that we just looked at, which are a little bit more detailed. They're a little longer, is really all there is to it. All right, I'll let you guys get started.